All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our live Q&A. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Dory, the marketing director here at Adventures in Good Company, and I'll be getting us started in today's conversation. Whether you're already signed up for our Tanzania trip or you're just starting to dream about a trip to East Africa, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to give you a behind the scenes look of one of our newest trips with two incredible women who know this trip from inside out. So first we have Lainie, who is one of our longtime AGC guides, who actually led this trip for us last year. And then we're also joined by Seema, who is the founder of Tanzania-curious, our amazing local partner and a true expert on the region. They'll be sharing what makes this adventure so special, like the remote trekking routes, the incredible wildlife encounters, the vibrant local culture, and what it really feels like to be there in person. So we have a handful of questions we're going to go through today. But if you have any questions while you're watching, feel free to drop them in the comments. We'll keep an eye on those and we will circle back at the end to go through any other ones that we haven't yet answered. So let's kick things off and I'll hand it over to you, Lady and Seema.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is such an amazing trip. So if you're signed up, I'm so excited to meet you. This trip blew me away when I did it last year. And I should mention that I lived in Kenya for 5 years, so I know East Africa pretty well. I've been on safari, but it was really a fantastic, amazing experience. As Dory mentioned, I've been guiding for AGC on and off for close to 20 years. Yeah, lots of background history and stories. But with Seema, we're sort of just going to start with covering like what the trip is. Seema's going to kind of walk us through where we're going to be in Tanzania, and some of the parks we're going to visit. Then I'll give a sort of more detailed overview of the day to day, and then we're going to get into some questions that people have asked us in the past, so we think would be useful for you all to hear. And then, as Dory mentioned, at any time, please feel free to populate the chat with any other questions we'll get. Like I mentioned, I now live in Washington, D.C., but I've actually spent most of my adult life living abroad. I've lived in Guatemala, Kenya, Turkey, most recently Mexico. So I'm a seasoned international traveler and feel pretty confident in lots of different environments. So Seema, I'll pass it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Very excited that some of you may be coming on this trip, but also hope today's session generates more interest in wanting to travel to Tanzania. So just to say a little bit about us, Tanzania Journeys has been going for quite a long time now, 20 years to be honest, and we really do specialize in trying to do trips in a different way. And this one certainly is like that. There is quite a lot of active moments. We love taking people to remote destinations, and this certainly offers that in several different ways. So as we talk you through it, I hope you'll start understanding where those kind of remote, unique experiences and journeys will be. Yeah. So Lenny,
Great,
can I
thanks,
pass it to
Seema. Do
you?
you want to take us over the map quickly?
Sure. So we're gonna start off. Day one is your travel day. So we're gonna start off. Well, overall, generally, I wanted to say that most of this trip is gonna be around the northern part of Tanzania. If you look at the full map of Tanzania, the square there definitely is the area you'll be traveling in over this particular trip. And this is an area that was formed through lots of uh, volcanic activity over many millions of years ago and has created lots of really interesting features which have lended themselves to great ecosystems for wildlife. And you're going to pass through pretty much most of what's on offer in this area. You'll be starting off in a town called Moshi, which is on day two. It's marked as day two, but I know that's the day you'll have a full day in Moshi, which is at the base of Kilimanjaro. So you will see the mountain and actually be on the lower slopes of the mountain through the activity you'll do on that day. So I think it's a great opportunity to enjoy the mountain without necessarily, climbing it all the way. Then you'll head off towards Arusha, where we have another mountain, which happens to be the fifth largest mountain in Africa as well, and called Mount Meru. And you will be in that park. There's a small park called Arusha National Park, and you'll be in that park. And again, this was a volcanic, it's a dormant volcano now, but it was a volcanic mountain. So again, has a lot of volcanic features, which has created an ecosystem that lends itself well to wildlife. Yeah, from there, we're going to head off, go a bit towards the south to Tarangire, what you see on day 4. So all these areas basically are different national parks or conservation areas, and each one has its really specific, what would you say, characteristic. So Tarangire is known for beautiful baobab trees. The landscape is very, very favorable to large herds of um, elephants. So you'll see something quite special there, which you will not see in many of the other parks. Further on, you'll go on to Lake Manyara National Park, which is again a small park where um, it's a small kind of park, but between Tarangire and Manyara, they kind of share a similar ecosystem because animals migrate between both of them. But again, this is one of the features of this is that it's on the edge of the Rift Valley escarpment. So again, gives beautiful views. There is a lake, a soda ash lake, which attracts a lot of flamingos as well. And this park is full of lots of bird life. From there, we are going to go on to Mtoambu, which is a village very close to Lake Manyara National Park. And this village is basically adjacent. So over the years, they've had issues with animals coming into their area. But what could I say? That they have lived always with animals near there. So it's quite a unique space because it's got people from all over Tanzania there, and you will do some cultural activities in that area. Let's see, from there on, we're going on to Ngorongoro Conservation Area. And Ngorongoro, again, is a huge area actually, and you will be seeing the crater, the Ngorongoro crater, which again was a massive mountain that collapsed during some volcanic activity millions of years ago and has created this amazing crater rim with a lake inside it. But because it's really enclosed, the animals you'll see there are um you see a lot of animals in there because it is an enclosed space. So it's got something very special that many of the other places don't offer. You see animals that sometimes are hard to find in some of the other parks. From here onwards, you will start your hike you'll start your hike that you have over 2 days over the Ngorongoro Conservation Area. I think maybe Lainie, you're a better place because you've done it very recently to talk a little bit about that hike.
Oh, okay. Great. Well, thanks, Seema, and apologies for my dogs barking. They really want to be in the room here with me. But the risk is they bark. If not, they're scratching on the door. The hike, so it's sort of 3 days, 2 nights that we're out. It far and away for me was just the most special experience I have. We are hiking through Maasai land. So the Maasai are an indigenous peoples, a really unique and fascinating traditional culture because they're sort of nomadic herders traditionally. Really beautiful people. And we're hiking in areas like we won't see any other tourists while we're there. And our local guides who are from the communities, Lemra in particular, is just an amazing individual who shares so much information about his culture. and his knowledge. So on those hiking days, we will have Lemra as our Maasai guide. We will also be accompanied by a hiking guide because that's a sort of Tanzanian requirement. I'm also a hiking guide. And then it's a question that might come up later, but I'll just answer it now. When we are on foot, we are accompanied by a Tanzania National Park ranger who does carry a firearm. Almost have never used them. Like I asked one of the guys, he said, I haven't used this in 20 years, but it's a safety precaution in the event we were to come across and startle an animal. We're a big group of women chatting, and that's, even less likely that that would happen with us, but it is there. So that is a physically demanding couple days. The team does a fantastic job. We stay in really nice tents with cots and blankets and pillows and sleeping bags, and they bring us hot water to freshen up in the morning and in the evening. They set up a really nice latrine tent with like you sit on the toilet. They dig a hole. But they bring like a toilet seat with them. So it's basically as glamping as you can get. And with lots of really nice touches that I don't want to spoil. The hiking is somewhat intense because we start off quite high and then we end quite low. So we start off, it's quite cold. And then by the time we finish, we're in really exposed sun. And the times of hiking just kind of vary depending on hiking speeds. People go at their own pace. As you heard, we have like more than enough guides. There's also usually a second Maasai guide who's kind of cut around. There's villagers around, and they're really excited to see us. And it is just really quite an authentic experience. Again, of really being off the beaten track with beautiful, gorgeous views. So that was definitely one of the highlights of the trip last year for me. I'll pass it back to you, Seema, to keep going
Yeah,
over
yeah.
the
Thank you so much.
itinerary.
Um, yeah, so you're gonna walk from this let's say where day 7 is, a little further away from there, and you'll walk all the way to the base of a actual volcanic mountain near Lake Natron, which is called Oldonia Lengai. So that's your hike or 2 days trek, 2.5 days trek that you would do. When you get to Lake Natron, you are now in a completely different area from some of these lush areas you've been in earlier, especially in Ngorongoro Conservation Area. It is a little hot, arid, almost desert-like there. And this is where a very remote, mostly Maasai community lives. And there's this lake, again, a soda lake. It is one of the only uh, breeding grounds for flamingos for the whole of East Africa. And you will see around you just very ancient volcanic land. Like you will see mountains, dormant volcanoes, you see the Rift Valley escarpment that East Africa is so well known for. It's kind of all around you, basically. And the thing about this community is they are living here in this kind of really remote place, but still living life. And I think it's a really, what would I say, quite a cultural experience and some form of transformation in some ways when you go to a place like this, well, where it just makes you think like what life is about really. um, and here you'll have activities, but also you will have quite a cultural kind of exchange experience with the community. You're staying in a camp where the Maasai are running it, so you will have a lot of interactions, which gives you something very different from what you've been doing so far, in terms of much more kind of deep exposure to culture, basically. And there's a series of activities we'll do there before you would then head. Next you'd be heading off to Serengeti. So again, you will really change the kind of landscape you're going to be in after Lake Natron. Serengeti is open plains. It's the savannah. The open spaces make completely change how things have been so far. You There is a lot of game, but all kind of spread out. So basically, the experience will be very different. The other thing I wanted to say is because you're coming in September, it is the famous migrations season, and you're gonna get the opportunity to go to see some of the crossings that happen with the Mara River, which is on the edge of Kenya and Tanzania. So if you're lucky, you will also be able to see the migration actually happening. So that's a plus for the time of the year that you're going to be traveling. Yeah. So you'll have, I think, 2 days there. Yes, yes, yes. Let me just cross check. Yeah, you'd have 2 days there, and then you would be flying back to Kilimanjaro for your flight back home. So quite a varied um, exposure or experience, I should say, for this trip.
Just two things to add to that, Seema.
Yeah.
The first is there is an optional balloon trip in Serengeti. It's not part of the fee, but last year, every single uh, participant, women on our trip did it. And I think this year the same is happening. It's really quite a special experience. To sort of see the animals from that perspective. And it was my first time going up in a hot air balloon. It was super cool. And I also wanted to just add, going back to the stop before in Lake Natron, and we're going to talk a little bit about the different types of accommodation. But there's another really amazing thing there, which is they believe that it's the largest and best preserved footprints of anatomically like modern humans in Africa. And it's right there. We're going to visit it. And because of the mud and the salt that were in these flats, you've got these footprints that they're dating between like 5,000 and 20,000 years ago. And it's not like a big tourist site. Like again, we're going to be the only ones there, but we happen to be we'll be at the site of, some of the, well, not some, apparently the oldest recorded modern human evidence around. So just wanted to add that as well. I think we pretty much went over, Seema went over most of the itinerary at a glance. So I don't really, have much more to add other than, um, as Seema mentioned, all the experiences of the safari days are really different, right? There you start with these big herds of elephants, and then you like see a giraffe and you're so excited because you see a giraffe in existence, like in the distance, and then like the next day you're just surrounded by, giraffe families. And so it's really quite a stunning thing. Also, just to mention, for those of you signed up for the trip, our last day in country, we fly back from Serengeti to the airport, and we have the afternoon in an airport hotel to like freshen up and take a nap and rest before we all begin, our big kind of travel back. So, yeah, so Asima mentioned like some of the animals that we're going to see. People often ask, like, are we going to see the big five? Hopefully, but you never quite know. The big five are lions, leopards, elephants, buffalo, and rhino. Out of those, leopards are the hardest to spot, but we might get lucky. Rhinos, if they're around, are pretty easy to spot, but there's very few left, sadly, in the region. But beyond that, we're gonna, hopefully see cheetahs and tons of wildebeest and zebras because those are the two main packs that are migrating. So during the migration, you can see groups of tens of thousands of these animals, but it does depend very much on the day and the week whether they're going to be grouping together and crossing together. Because what happens is they all come together they get to the edge of the river, and then they like go back and forth for a while until one of the crazy wildebeests or zebras that like takes the bull by the horn, so to speak, and decides to cross. And then they all cross. But there's a lot of kind of going back and forth until they decide to cross. That's the moment they're at most risk from crocodiles who are in the river. And so that's why there's this kind of back and forth, if you will, about crossing the river. But once some of them start going, often, big groups of hundreds or thousands will cross. So we'll see a lot of those. We'll definitely see a lot of hippos, hopefully see some hyenas, lots of gazelles and different species of gazelles and antelopes and monkeys, and also sort of smaller, unusual mammals as well, meerkat, things like that. Also, if people are, birders, there's just some gorgeous birds. Now, when I first moved to East Africa, I was like, birds? What? I want to see an elephant. But like, once you see a lot of elephants, you're like, let's see some other stuff. There's some beautiful colorations on the birds that we'll be looking out for as well. My favorite is the lilac-breasted roller, which we will likely see. It's just a gorgeous bird. So, anything else on animals, Seema, that we should state? No?
No, I think the only thing I was gonna say, the most likelihood of seeing a rhino, Serengeti, it's really impossible. And actually, they're kind of hidden away, protected in a special area, which most people can. I mean, you're not allowed to go there. Really, you pay like separate to go in there. So most people don't. But the most likely place you'll see a rhino is in Ngorongoro crater. Again, because it's a far more enclosed area, there's more chances of seeing it there over anywhere else, really. So that was my
Great.
only thing to add
Yeah,
in.
that's where we saw it last year as well.
But
And
very
there's
few chances in Serengeti, yeah.
Yeah, and they're far away, so we kind of saw this big gray lump, but nonetheless, it was exciting to see.
Yeah.
Seema, one of the questions, or maybe someone from the office, because I don't recall, asked about the price of the balloon trip. So, what is the price of the balloon? It's not cheap, but it's a whole experience. It's not like you just go up and you go down. You like go up, you go there very early, you watch them inflate, you go in the balloons, and then, or maybe someone, Amy from the AGC office has that number offhand. Then you go for this like kind of out of Africa themed breakfast, which is also really fun. So it's not just like the time in the balloon. It's a whole morning activity. Does anyone know offhand the price of that? I can't recall.
Would have to check. I may
Okay,
make
we'll find out as we go, and Dory or Amy will figure that out. Another question here is like the difference between the 2025 and the 2026 trips. The difference is very little. It's mainly in different accommodations that we've chosen, based on feedback and different information. So the itinerary is largely the same.
apart from this one takes you to the north of
Right.
Serengeti.
Yeah, that's true. So the camp in Serengeti is different. And the reason why is because we're getting as close to the Mara River as we can so that we can easily see those migrating herds, not packs. I said packs earlier. That's dogs, herds of wildebeest and zebra. So there's a question I see about elevation gain and hours that we're hiking. I'm gonna look up I don't want to give you wrong information. It's not like it's mainly an elevation loss. So we're for the most part hiking down on those days. I'm gonna go back and get more specifics about the actual elevation gain loss, unless Seema, you have that. In
I do,
terms of the out, okay, Seema has that. What's
but I will. I think I'll share it with you to share with everyone.
Okay.
Go and look for it.
Yeah, the terms of the hours and the distance the distances are set. The hours really depends on people's hiking speed. But when we arrive at the first campsite, we do a hike down to a lake, and that will take maybe 3 hours round trip. And that we're doing that as the team of porters is getting the camp ready. And so also just to note that when we're on the hike, there's no roads. And so all of our gear is being carried by donkeys and Maasai porters who are also helping out. And we have a whole cook team. So there's a chef and he has various helpers. So there's a lot of people around us as we're supporting us. All you'll need to carry during that hike is your day pack with water. Filtered water is provided everywhere. Filtered drinking water. And so on the packing list, you'll see information about drinking water. And it's always provided, but you do need to refill your own bottles. We don't, like buy water bottles for the trip. What's done is big filters are always available. And
One of the things
we're going to
I
talk
want,
about food in a little bit. So yeah, okay. I don't know
I,
if we have the elevation information. If not, I'll move on to the next slide.
I would have to look it up, but a bit scared if I come off this, I'll lose something with my technology. So can we share it later with the group?
Yeah, we'll share that later. I also have it. I just we don't want to I think the price is around $600 for the
Yeah.
balloon ride, which is kind of what it costs everywhere a year to do something like that. It's a pretty expensive experience for a variety of reasons. Okay, I think we can go on. I think I answered the questions I've seen, but we can go on to the next slide.
Could I mention something about the
Yeah.
hike? When we talked about how things are carried, it's really important that you have like a smaller, um, you have your day pack, but whatever you need for the hike is, which will be carried by the donkeys and the porters, is a smaller bag and not the main bag that you brought on the trip, because your main bag will end up going to Lake Natron by car, and you'll find it there when you get there. So we kind of need you to be able to separate your gear that you will need specifically for the hike or for the walk.
Yeah, maybe I could be more specific about that. And again, people who are registered, we're going to go over all these details and it's laid out in the literature. But you need your suitcase that has everything in it. And then you're going to need some sort of soft-sided duffel bag or, backpack to put what you need for those 3 days, which is essentially just some clothes. And then you're going to need that. So there'll be a certain amount that will go on the dunking. Then you're going to need your day pack, which is going to have like snacks and water, your hiking poles. So it's three separate things you're going to
Yeah.
need. Okay, so the next question is where will we be staying? Is it safe and comfortable? Well, actually, one other thing, just quickly to say about what does like a typical safari day feel like. We're usually up early and we do a game drive in the morning of a couple hours. We are seated in the safari vehicles looking, scouting. When we see animals and exciting animals, we stop. When anyone wants to take a picture, we stop. But we're basically in the safari vehicle for several hours. We stop for lunch. Typically, it's going to be a packed lunch. Could be a sandwich, it could be, chicken drumsticks, but we always have like, it's a very, actually the lunches are huge and we usually wind up giving at least half of our collective lunches to the park rangers that we see because they give us a lot of food. And then we get back to the lodge in the evening in time for like sundowners, which is the East Africa word for like happy hour, and dinner. And dinners are typically buffet dinners. So just to sort of go over the pace of our full safari days. Um, so, right, like in terms of where we stay, everywhere we stay is safe and comfortable. And it ranges from kind of what we would think of as a boutique hotel, like a small hotel that has all sorts of services and amenities, pools and nice uh I don't know, shampoos and soaps and things like that, maybe bathrobes in there. Then we also stay in semi-permanent safari tents. So what those are it's typically it's not a tent the way we think of a camping tent. There's beds in there. there's bathrooms in the tents as well, connected to the tents. They are made out of canvas, often on a cement platform, sometimes just on a raised wooden platform. This is all about environmental uh, respect, and so not building permanent structures to affect the wildlife. It's usually part of the national park rules in a lot of these cases. So again, these safari tents are quite luxurious with nice bedding and bathrooms, running water to brush your teeth. Some of them will have full plumbing. Some of them will have like a bucket shower. And what that means is you tell someone like you're gonna take a shower, and then they'll fill um, a tank with hot water that then you will use. So your experience will be like a normal shower, hot water, cold water, but it's not on tap. It's filled by the staff when you're ready to shower, because they don't have like huge plumbing systems installed in the ground. And as I mentioned, when we're camping, we are staying in large camping tents, if you will, but they have cots and blankets and beds, and so it's really quite comfortable. So okay, I don't know, Seema, do you have anything? I mean, we can give you more information about the different um, accommodations, but I just want to assure everybody it's very comfortable and cozy everywhere we go, and each place has a kind of unique aspect. One of the places we're staying in huts that are built like a Masai Boma, like using their traditional kind of structures, but inside you've got, lights and electricity and charging ports and bathrooms. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, I think, because you get, this sort of different experience, but with a large degree of luxury. Anything you want to add to that, Seema?
I think just one thing, which is that where you are staying in these tented camps, which is what we call this kind of semi-permanent structures, in the national parks, they are unfenced. So you are really in the middle of wilderness and nature. So it is possible that within the camp area, wild animals can come in, especially in the evening when there's less activity or human activity. So most of the time, once it gets dark, you cannot really walk around there. Though even in the daytime, you need to be vigilant because there's no fence. So any animals which are in the national park can come into that area. So it's just to be
Right.
mindful of that. But sometimes my personal thing is I've had the best sleep hearing a hyena or a lion roar in the distance.
Yeah,
And it's
and
like, that's scary.
maybe just to add to that, in the camps that are not fenced, as Seema mentioned, there's a certain degree of risk, particularly after dark. All of the camps have armed security guards. Now they're not armed with firearms, but like they're, and so if you do need to get up, if you do need to do something, for instance, our balloon safari day, we have to be up before the sun rises. There's always an escort. So there's communication, sometimes radios, from your tent to the staff, and there would always be an escort, and there's always guards patrolling 24/7. So the likelihood of a predator coming in is very low. Um, I've never heard of like a case in one of these sorts of camps where there was a really serious interaction, and there are guards patrolling at all times, and you would simply not walk by yourself. Frankly, the most dangerous animal you might encounter are monkeys, who in some of the places try to get in and steal your food. So they're not dangerous to us, but and it's something we'll go over, that if you have snacks and things, to be really careful, because monkeys are the ones that are the most frisky. Um, there are single supplements available for this trip. I saw that question coming in. Will there be Wi-Fi and electricity? Yes, there will be electricity everywhere we're going, except on our 3-day trek when we will be out with no access to electricity. So you know, might want to bring a power bank at that point in time. There is also Wi-Fi everywhere we're going, with the exception again of those 3 days that were off grid. It's not always available in your room. So often the Wi-Fi is available in like the lodge. So for instance, in the tented camps, there's all these tents spread out, kind of like the picture you're seeing now. And then there's huge, large tents that are used as like a dining room and a sitting area where there'll be books and bars and just areas to relax. There will be Wi-Fi there. There won't necessarily be Wi-Fi, you know, in your tent or in your room. So if, you know, staying connected is an absolute must for you, we recommend you look into a, you know, international cellular data plan, which you can basically call your provider, tell them you're going to Tanzania, and there's a daily fee for access to the cellular network, which has pretty good coverage. I feel like I have one of those plans. I feel like I had coverage most of the trip. So yeah.
One,
And in some areas it is spotty. So, you know, for your loved ones, you want to tell them, okay, these days we're on the trek. I'm definitely not going to be in touch. And the rest of the days I probably can be in touch, but you know, things happen. The power can go down, routers can go down. Our CMIS team carries radios, and so there's like radio connections as well. Things like that happen. So yeah. Anything, Seaman, to add to that?
Yeah, just one thing to clarify. Apart from the trek, the only other place where you won't have Wi-Fi is the camp you'll stay in Lake Natron. That certainly won't have. I mean, there's good network coverage, so if you do have an international data plan, you can access it through that through the network, the mobile phone network. But the camp itself doesn't have Wi-Fi. I think that's the only one. So you will have 4 consecutive days where you will have no access to Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Okay. In my mind it had Wi-Fi, but I guess I'm
No.
creating that. But also to say, for people who are registered for the trip, I do have an international plan, and it's unlimited. So I'm very happy to give people a hotspot. You know, if they need to contact loved ones, let them know we're off the trek and we're doing well. So that's always a possibility. And those of you who are registered, well, you have my email already, but you'll have my cell phone number, and your loved ones can also use that in case of any emergencies or needing to contact us. Okay, so do you need a visa for Tanzania? Yes, you need a visa for Tanzania. And it's really easy to do online. Last year, the systems were not great. This year, the systems are much better. So, Dory or Amy, if you could put the link to the website in the chat, that would be great. It's $100. You could do it all online. You upload a picture. I recommend doing it in advance if you can, because it basically means you can skip the line upon arrival. If you have issues getting your visa for whatever reason, you can get it on arrival by paying the $100, but you might have to like stand in line and wait around, which is kind of the last thing you want to do after your, you know, likely, I don't know how many hour journey to get there. The worst part about the only thing about this trip, which is not great, is the long flights. But like you forget about it the minute you get there. You rest the first night. And that's great. Thanks, Amy, for adding that link. Okay, so what vaccinations are needed? So I guess the first thing to say is that if you're registered for the trip, or you register in the future, we really recommend talking to a travel medicine specialist. We don't give specific medical advice. Some of the decisions are quite personal. So that I'll sort of, that's the blanket response. That being said, there are vaccines that are almost always recommended, like DTP, like diphtheria, tetanus, polio, typhoid, Hep A, Hep B, um, meningitis. The two things that are more to be discussed with your doctor and decided upon are yellow fever. Now, yellow fever, you might read that it's required to enter Tanzania. It's actually only needed if you're entering from a country with a risk of yellow fever. So if you're flying directly from the States or you're stopping over somewhere for a few hours, it's actually technically not required. But if you stay somewhere like for more than 24 hours, then you do. So for instance, I'm flying Ethiopia Air because it's the least expensive way and actually most direct way for me to get there. By the way, I've flown them before. It's an absolutely fine airline. It's, not uber luxurious, but no airlines these days are. They're very efficient, they have new airplanes and like an amazing safety record. So if those of you are thinking about it, but if you decided, okay, I want to spend a couple days in Ethiopia, then you would need the vaccine because you'd be flying in from Ethiopia. There's also, again, your doctor can guide you on this, but sometimes there is something called a yellow fever vaccine waiver. So if because of age or for whatever reason. So yellow fever is sort of up to you kind of thing. And anti-malarial pills are also something that's like very much a personalized decision. Tanzania is, considered a high risk for malaria. Now, malaria is also somewhat localized, so we're not going to like the worst parts for malaria, and malaria pills can have side effects. So again, that's something, the malaria pills are something to speak to your medical provider about. Seema, anything else on malaria, like in particular to add about the areas we're going to?
Yeah, I mean, there will be mosquitoes, but very little, very few malaria, or I mean, some of the altitudes you're at are quite high and there really isn't any malaria there. So, you certainly shouldn't feel that wherever you go, all these mosquitoes are around you are malaria mosquitoes. Mostly malaria is on the coastal side of Tanzania.
Yeah. And I don't really remember anywhere like having lots of mosquitoes. It's typically again around dusk and you're covered and the rest of it. But at nowhere that we went last year was it like, oh my gosh, we're being swarmed by mosquitoes and anything like that. So again, that is an individual decision. I took antimalarials last year, and I'm not sure I'm going to this year. So that's where I'm at in my personal thinking. Okay, what should I pack for a safari? So the first thing is look at our packing list and follow it, and do not overpack. Because you just don't want to have to be like, while we get help everywhere we go, frankly, with our luggage, but you just don't need that much. And you just don't want to, there's two reasons I say don't overpack. You don't want a big, heavy bag to have to, schlep around. The second reason on this trip is there's laundry done at most of these lodges. So you can, and it's very affordable. So it's not like $25 for a t-shirt, like in some places in the States. So I really encourage you to follow the packing list. Amy, if you could put that link as well in the chat. And try not to pack too much. Like I thought like some tips that again we'll go over because I'm going to talk to all the people who are registered, but just some tips of mine that may or may not be, well, good binoculars. Like you've invested so much for this once of a lifetime trip. Don't, you want to invest in a decent pair of binoculars. I'm not saying go out and buy $1,000 pair of binoculars, but you don't want to come with like the, $20 ones you use at a concert, like maybe something in the $50 to $100 range that has, good magnification. And the other thing is, my tip is like saline solution for eyes, for nose. The irony is you think you're kind of you are in these lush environments, but it's very, very dusty, particularly the second half of the trip. And so, being able to rinse out your nose and your eyes is really important. Any other like tips, Seema, things that people might not have thought of?
No, I was going to mention the binoculars as well. Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
I'm assuming on your list you do have trekking poles for the actual trek, yeah?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, great.
And that's very important to bring. And if anyone who's registered wants to talk to me about trekking poles, we could do so. I we'll get onto that later.
And if anyone, the only thing I would add in is for anyone who doesn't want to bring things like trekking poles, which I know can be sometimes a pain to travel with, we can get them rented out locally for you for
Thank
this
you,
trip.
Seema.
Yeah.
Great. So how physically active is a safari trip? The safari trip itself is not terribly physically active. As I mentioned, our trek is active. The first day is maybe 3 hours, and then the next 2 days, I would say we're in motion 5 to 6 hours roughly. But then we do kind of recover very nicely in this camp that is it's not we don't go back out on safari for another couple days after the trek to kind of recover, if you will, from that. And so, but we are like in constant motion. So there is not much downtime. There is, because by the time we get like back to our tents and we shower and we go to dinner and we fall asleep and we're moving again. So there's a couple days that are built in with like more downtime. But for the most part, it's a very active, jam-packed trip. I think there's like one free afternoon where you can like sit around the pool. Now, of course, you might opt not to do some of the activities because you just want some more downtime, which is totally fine as well. But we're very programmed throughout the trip, doing all sorts of cool cultural things, which um, also is just really fascinating to see how, for instance, the Maasai live and visit their villages and they have no electricity and no running water and, lived in what we would consider, very cramped quarters. And, we learn about how they live through their livestock. And it's a really fascinating experience. So, okay, what's next?
I have a question here about the question is about handling
Money?
money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you want to take that one, Seema?
sure, sure. So, in terms of what is covered, all your meals are covered with this trip. So, mostly you would need cash for personal purchases, possibly tipping as well. Beyond that, and I don't know what else you'd really need cash for per se. US dollars are accepted widely, though you may want to take out some money through an ATM in local currency, Tanzanian shillings, if you wanted to just pop into a supermarket and buy a couple of items. But if if you're unable to, they will accept US dollars. So I would suggest trying to bring lots of $1 or $5 bills, just so that you can make those small purchases and get not have to worry so much about getting change back. Credit cards are accepted at most of the lodges, but not all. So just to keep that in mind. Mostly they are, but again, Lake Natron is a very remote space. So again, I know they won't accept. They need payments in cash, for example. So any drinks you buy would need to be paid by cash. So just keep that in mind as well. And for that, the cash can be in US dollars. So yeah, I would say those would be the two, I mean, the considerations you need to keep in mind. You will have opportunities to buy some, you're going to go to one particular cultural trip where there's a lot of like art forms being made, and you may want, it's very likely most people will be interested in buying something because you're buying something directly from carvers, or you're buying something directly from an artist who's painting beautiful pictures. for these places as well, it's really useful that you have like cash available, because they don't, so far they haven't got to a stage where they have a credit card
Some of
machine.
them do, Seema. Some of them do. Some of the vendors will take
Oh, really?
a payment, right? They maybe assess a fee, but I recall that. Yeah. So just to reiterate, there's lots of opportunities. The two main things are, beverages, alcoholic beverages, and or if you want like a soda, we'll always have water and juice is always included, but often like a soda or an alcoholic beverage is separate. And then for souvenirs, there's more information about this in the literature for those of you who are registered. And we'll also, the talk about tipping and AGC tips the team that supports us on the trek, because that's kind of like separate from that's kind of part of the experience. So we don't tip the guides, the local guides, which shift because we'll be with safari guides and then we're with different guides during the trek. We don't tip them, but we do tip all the team that supports us on that trek. And we do tip any guides in the villages and things like that, that are group activities. You might want to top up. I will say that people last year loved everyone so much that they were like, no, let's, we want to give more than what SEMA advised was the customary. So it was really nice. And yeah, there's some other kind of cool things about that we'll go over for those who are registered. We wound up making a donation to the women's group uh, in the villages that support that along the trek. We felt that it was, rather than like buying little souvenirs to support them, we wanted to collectively pool some money for the women. So that was just what we decided. So what is Tanzanian culture like? I'll just say you can see that picture there. I'm like behind the N, and Lemra, our main Maasai guide, is all the way on the left. And the rest of us, we had a big group last year because it was our first year running the trip. But Seema, I'm going to let you talk about Tanzanian culture, although I'll just add in very varied, very, very diverse.
Yeah. I mean, this could go on forever because it is a very, as you, Lainey said, very varied culture. But the general theme of Tanzanian culture is very much about warmth and friendliness. And I think you will come across that everywhere you go, and whatever you go and experience. People are very and open to share and show their culture, proud of it. So you will get a good exposure, and it is very varied. So what you will see when you first arrive in Kilimanjaro, where the Chaga live, is very, very different from what you will see in Toambu, where you'll see a whole range of different people, people who've moved, migrated from southern Tanzania, and their tradition is carving, to people who come from somewhere near the Ngorongoro Highlands, who are very different people as well. And but the thing is, there's always unity. So Tanzanian culture, there is just not that much separation between people. And then when you go into these Maasai areas, you'll see a very particular culture there as well. So I would say it's very varied, very friendly, and there is a lot to learn, because it's just every section or every geographical area has its own thing going on, for sure. I don't know
Yeah, I
if
would
there's
just
any
add,
question.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I thought
I
you were, Karen.
No, no, can continue.
Oh, now I would just, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I would just sort of piggybacking on that. Again, having lived in Kenya, the neighboring country, I can attest that Tanzanians are very unified and very friendly. But there's over 120 different ethnic groups. There's lots of different languages. English and Swahili are the main languages that are spoken, but when we're in the Maasai country, we'll be with people who speak local language. Um, so yeah, it is incredibly friendly. It's also fascinating, and we'll learn a little bit about this because at some point parts of Tanzania were part of a German protectorate. So there's influence of colonization. Tanzania is actually brought together the Zan is for Zanzibar. So Tanzania blends Zanzibar, which is the islands. Well, it's the main island off the coast, but there's lots of other islands off the coast. But the one you might have heard of is Zanzibar and the Tanzania mainland. So, and just to say, if you are coming on the trip, or you're thinking about coming on the trip, one thing that one of the women did who joined us last year, she on her own added on a few days in Zanzibar afterwards. I think that was a great idea. We've been talking at AGC about having that be an add-on. So it might be something you want to consider. And we can, we help give you some ideas for that if that's something you decide to do. That's not part of this trip. This trip does not go to Zanzibar, but one could add on a few days quite easily, I think.
I
So I
I
think
have
I could
one
skip.
add-in,
Oh,
sorry, Lainey, on the issue, I mean, on this whole section on Tanzanian culture. So one of the things I did want to mention, unlike our neighbors, Kenya, Tanzanians love to speak Swahili, right? That's like their preferred mode of conversation. Obviously, with international travelers, we'll communicate in English, but overall, Tanzanians love it where, love to share their language as well. So I would also suggest a great tip is that if you were able to just get basic greetings, the minute you greet people in their language here, people just open up like even more so, right? So it's always a good idea to know a little bit, like just pick up a few words, just greetings, thank you. And even when you're with the Maasai, like their language is so different from Swahili, which is our main national language. But even being able to just pick up one or two words will go a long way. So that's something that works very well in Tanzania. Yeah.
yeah, and I'll send out to those who are registered or anyone who wants, some different resources for that. I concur, even just, some basics like jumbo, which is hello. And yes, we will sing the Lion King song at some point. For those of you who know, that's probably where you're most familiar with hearing Swahili words. Um, so one other just quick thing to hit on, because I know we're sort of running up on time, just to encourage if anyone does have any questions, this is the time to put them in the chat. A comment about food. First of all, we can cater to vegetarians, vegans. Most of our dinners are buffet style. There's always, fresh fruit and vegetables often, as well as, different main courses, if you will. Typically breakfast there's almost always a full cooked breakfast. So like eggs and are offered. And then there's also things like fruit and yogurt, often as well. Lunch, as I said, most days is a packed lunch, which with a pretty big lunch with a wide variety of things. It probably is like a sandwich and an apple and a chicken leg and a baked good and candy bar and a juice box. So it's quite big. And dinners again typically are a buffet style. In a handful of the lodges, it is kind of ordering off of a menu, or it's a served fixed meal rather than buffet style. But again, and I'll go over this with people who are registered, if there are any dietary restrictions, they can be accommodated. Um, so I think we've covered most of what we wanted to cover. I guess there's no more questions. I don't see any. So just to thank you all very much for joining us. Again, to just say, I think this is like a really once in a lifetime incredible experience. And I'm not just saying that because there's lots of really fantastic AGC trips, and I know a lot of you have been on them. This one really is special. It's a way to see East Africa that is really not common. Like the safari bits, yes, but the trek through the Highlands is something you're doing that no one else is doing that. And it's a really, really special part of the experience. And I can't wait to meet those of you who are registered and encourage those of you who are on the fence, please come with us. It's going to be a fantastic trip. And sometimes people ask, we do hope to offer it again next year, but we, don't entirely know what the schedule will look like for next year. So if you're considering joining us and you can, now is a fantastic time. And yeah, it's going to be great. I can't wait. Any last things from AGC or SEMA from you? Oh, maybe just to say our Tanzanian guys for that work with Tanzania Journeys are amazing and really fun. So we have a lot of fun when we're on safari. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, just thank you again for joining us, and Asante Sana, that's Kiswahili for thank you very much.
Thank you.